Well, folks, you made it. After much anticipation, tomorrow is primary election day in Idaho. After hours of political ads and dramatic party politics and a couple of high-stakes legislative sessions, tomorrow we will get a look at the future leadership of our state. On a statewide level, there are 5 primary races that all Idahoans will vote on: Superintendent of Public Instruction, Attorney General, Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor, and Governor of the state of Idaho. Now, the truth in Idaho is that Republicans traditionally have a very strong voting majority. So it is fair to say that there is a strong chance that the winner of the GOP primaries tomorrow will have a shot at winning in November. So with all of that in mind, tomorrow's races are crucial. And we wanted to give you, the voters at home, some expert analysis on the races ahead of Election Day. So earlier today, I talked through the races with Boise State Professor of Political Science, Dr. Stephanie Witt. And Dr. Witt's an expert on public policy and politics and history here in the state of Idaho. So let's go race by race on the GOP side. We'll circle back to the Dems in just a moment. But back to the GOP for now. Let's start with Superintendent of Public Instruction. Leading the pack, incumbent Sherry Ibarra, challenger Debbie Critchfield, and challenger Brandon Durst. Dr. Witt says there are 2 very different sides to this race.
Ibarra is the incumbent. She probably has name recognition with many voters because of that. This will be her 3rd time standing for election with this race. Critchfield has a lot of valuable experience with the State Board of Education, but it's unclear to me to lay out succinctly, here's the difference between this candidate and that candidate. Now, there's a world of difference between those 2 and Brandon Durst, who is really a proponent of the kinds of things that would potentially dismantle the public education system. It is usually headed under parent choice. So there's a clear difference between Durst and Ibarra and Critchfield, but between Ibarra and Critchfield, I'm not sure what the big difference is.
Over to the GOP race for Secretary of State. We watched here on KTVB that kind of play out during our debate. Now, current Secretary of State Lawrence Denny is not seeking re-election, so we will have a new face come November, guaranteed in that office. Now, the top candidates on the GOP side include current Ada County Clerk Phil McGrain, Senator Mary Souza, and Representative Dorothy Moon. Moon and Souza have significant legislative and election experience, while McGrain currently runs elections for the largest county in the state and has for the last several years. Dr. Witt says similar candidates in Moon and Souza may create an interesting dynamic in the voting.
Part of the party that is concerned about election integrity and doesn't believe that Joe Biden won the 2020 election, and that would be Representative Moon and Senator Souza believe that. Phil McGrain's gone on record that he believes Joe Biden won the election. So now McGrain is the person who knows the technicalities of being the Secretary of State. I think prior to the 2020 presidential election, most people had no idea what secretaries of state did. They are in charge of all that technical stuff about running the elections on a annual or biannual basis. And so McGrain is clearly the person who knows how to do that. If the party split between the 2 people who don't believe that Trump lost, and it may open up a way for McGrain to sneak in there and win.
In the Republican race for Attorney General, incumbent Lawrence Wasden faces challengers Raul Labrador and Art McAmmer. Dr. Witt says that this race will likely come down to name recognition and the candidates' views on what the role of the Attorney General should be in Idaho.
This is really about the philosophy behind the office. Is this office a law and order, yes, no, constitutional read that advises the legislature and the agencies? Or is this agency or this office a bully pulpit to make your points about policy issues? And I think what Labrador and McAmmer are saying is we want to make it more of a political speaking point, right? They want to go after those cultural issues and use the office to file lots more lawsuits against the federal government or other agencies. And Wasden has a much more constrained and limited view of the office that really is more in line with how the office has traditionally been operated.
Over to the lieutenant governor's race. With Lieutenant Governor McGeehan running for governor, we are guaranteed a new lieutenant governor come November. GOP frontrunners House Speaker Scott Bedke and State Representative Priscilla Giddings are expected to be the top two in that race. Dr. Witt says that the lieutenant governor's race on the GOP side is a microcosm of the 2022 primary in Idaho. Established and traditional GOP candidates versus Republicans looking to take the party in a different direction.
Bedke really represents that traditional Main Street form of Republican, fiscal conservative, interested in the bread and butter kinds of issues. Giddings plays more to that further right wing of the party. She's a volatile character, you know. I mean, there's been a lot of polarizing news about her troubles with the ethics committee in the legislature, for example. She is running more of a grassroots campaign than Bedke. Bedke has more money. She has raised a significant amount, but it's almost all from individual donors. So they represent really different styles. And Bedke is flooding the airwaves with advertisements. And so he appears to be choosing that traditional way of reaching out to the voters more than Giddings has, at least yet.
The Republican race for Idaho governor comes down to really three candidates: the incumbent, current Governor Brad Little, current Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeehan, and relative newcomer Ed Humphreys. Now, Dr. Witt says, thinking back to the pretty competitive 2018 primary between Little, Raul Labrador, and Tommy Ahlquist, this is a much different race now, with Little running as the incumbent.
This appears to be in the home stretch here. To be Little's race, that he's pulled ahead. He's way ahead on fundraising. He appears to be polling, just that I'm hearing through the grapevine, very well. So I would be surprised if it's close at all. Humphreys has spent a lot of money on advertisements, and he is well known in parts of the Treasure Valley, especially the Eagle area where he's from and where he works with a lot of his clients in finance. But I really would expect that Little will win this without any trouble. But that's why we have the election, to see who wins, right? You don't know until you vote. So we won't know until we add them up.
Okay, so what about the Democrats this primary election? Again, a lot of these uncontested or uncompetitive races, we can tell you this. For governor, there is only one name that will show up on your ballot for Democrats. That's Stephen Haidt. However, current Standpoint Mayor Shelby Rongstad is running a write-in campaign. Lieutenant Governor candidate Democrat Terry Pickens Manweiler is on the ballot there. Secretary of State candidate Sean Keenan has no challenger. Attorney General candidate Steve Scanlon and Superintendent of Public Instruction Terry Gilbert. They are all running uncontested and will automatically make it to the November ballot. So there you go. And you can track all the races and the parties right now in our voter guide. It's very helpful right now, ktvb.com. So no matter the outcome of tomorrow's elections, there will be several new Idaho lawmakers in the Capitol come next January. At least 32 guaranteed, meaning at least about 30% of the lawmakers will either be new or in a new position starting with the 2023 legislative session. And that number likely to go up should an incumbent lose in the primary or general election. Right now, there are two districts that will have all new representation, both thanks to retirements and new district boundaries. Now, District 12 in Nampa, currently Senator Todd Lakey is running for election in District 23. Current State Representative Ben Adams, a Republican, is facing Thomas Netzley for that spot. And both representative seats have new faces. Current Representative Bruce Skog is now serving District 11, and Rick Youngblood, who served for 5 terms, is not running for re-election. And in District 21 in Meridian and Boise, current 2-term Senator Regina Bayer is not seeking re-election. Current Representative Stephen Harris announced his retirement back in March. The district's other representative, Greg Furch, is running in District 22. And of Idaho's 35 districts, 20 will have at least one new face. Remember way back in the beginning of 2020, even before the pandemic, the United States Bureau started its every 10-year process of counting every person in the country. That's the census. Now, for obvious reasons, it took a little bit longer to complete than normal, but it all got done, and a lot of legislative lines were moved because of it. Why? Well, because under Idaho law, each legislative district must have about the same number of people so that each representative is given the same opportunity. So, with Idaho's population officially updated, districts, they needed to be updated too. hence redistricting. And while some districts change very little, some change a lot. And there are several races where incumbents will face their current coworkers. That includes 2 different races in District 9, which now include parts of Canyon County, Payette County, and Washington County. The first race between Senator Abby Lee of Fruitland and Senator Jim Rice of Caldwell. Rice, who was in District 10, is now running in 9. He is seeking his 7th term in office, while Lee seeking her 5th term. 2 other Republicans, Kayla Dunn and Jordan Marquez, are also running in that same race. Also in District 9, Representative Judy Boyle of Midvale will face off against colleague Scott Syme, a representative from Caldwell. Syme, who just finished his 3rd term, had his district changed from 11 to 9. Representative Boyle, who just finished her 7th term in the House, is the current incumbent in District 9. Finally, in District 14, which now includes all of Gem County and parts of Eagle and Ada County. Previously, Gem County was part of District 8, along with parts of Valley, Boise, Lemhi, and Custer counties. 3-term Senator Scott Grow of Eagle, who currently holds the District 14 seat, will be challenged by District 8's Stephen Thane, a 5-term senator from Emmett. Because Emmett was moved to District 14, the 2 incumbents will now face off. Now, redistricting also has another effect on voters: polling places. Where do you go vote? So before you head to the polls tomorrow, make sure that you double check that you know where your polling place is, because there's a good chance it may have changed. So just make sure you check in on that.